The community that wrote John was an anti-society, and John the Gospel itself is anti-language. Going by linguist Michael Halliday and context group scholars Bruce Molina and Richard Rohrbaugh, anti-language is the language of an anti-society. It's a way of communicating to insiders within a language that excludes outsiders. These scholars show convincingly that we should not think of anti-language as merely a specialized or technical variety of ordinary language used in special ways or in particular technical contexts. Instead, anti-language arises among persons and groups that espouse and are swayed by alternative perceptions of reality. Anti-language expresses a counter-reality, experienced and established by an anti-society in opposition to some established mode of conception and perception. Thinking about that and looking at the gospel called John and how it's used today, several ironies arise. Consider how ministry outfits like Cru, formerly Campus Crusade for Christ, and various Catholic groups enjoy using the Gospel of John to evangelize people into their respective versions of Christianity. Think about John 3:16 and how it's used at all these different sporting events. Or how much Catholics emphasize John chapter 6, the bread of life discourse. These Christians treat John as if it were written to convince outsiders to become insiders. And thus, they treat the Gospel of John as if it were primarily about conveying ideas about God and Jesus. For example, how we have to accept Jesus as our personal Lord and Savior. Or how we have to believe in His real presence at the Eucharist. But being a text of anti-language, the Gospel of John was written especially not to be understood by outsiders. To hell with those people in darkness, they'll never get it anyway. And the communication mode of the Gospel of John was intended to be interpersonal, concerned with the personal qualities of communicating partners. John extremely downplays the ideational, meaning what is being said and described. Christians should read the whole Gospel of John, excluding the appended chapter 21 and the story of the woman caught in adultery. They should honestly compare John with the synoptic Gospels Mark, Matthew, and Luke. This will show how John downplays the ideational feature of language. He's not concerned about ideas. He's not conveying ideas about God and Christ. Unlike the synoptics, in John, you don't really find any progressive description of who Jesus is, or any increasingly hostile opposition from his enemies, or any progressive presentation of the ministry and teaching of Jesus. Everything John wants to present as far as ideas about God and Jesus are concerned gets stated in the prologue, John chapter 1, verses 1 to 18. He came to his own people, and they did not receive him. But to all who received him, he gave the power to become children of God. That's the name that the Johannine Anti-Society gives itself. In other words, those who received him, he gave the power to join the Johannine Anti-Society. People who were born of God. For God's utterance has been enfleshed and taken up residence in our midst. Folks, everything that follows verse 18 of chapter 1, all those Johannine vignettes are simply variations on this theme. It's all crabgrass and rehash.